Good evening, all. Welcome to councillors, members of the public and staff. I declare meeting open at 6:30. Everyone at this meeting is reminded to conduct themselves in a polite and professional manner, keep communication factual, use appropriate language and tone. Do not use any derogatory remarks. I also ask councillors to observe the requirements under the Code of Meeting Practice and Meeting Etiquette. All present are reminded that YouTube video recording is an official record of council and will be accessible via YouTube in accordance with the Code of Meeting Practice. No other recordings are permitted, and all present should ensure that there are no video recordings, audio recordings, or photographs taken. In case of an emergency, please follow the instructions of the council staff, exit via the town hall foyer, and proceed to the evacuation point. I'd like to start by acknowledging country. I'd like to acknowledge the Bidjigal clans, the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and work, and acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I pay my respects to elders, past and present. We have apologies. I've got two apologies, one from Councillor Curry and a second apology from Councillor Strong. I guess there's no other apologies. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Mayor McDougall, seconded by Councillor Kassim. They'll be noted in the minutes. No leave of absence required. Attendance via visual link. There's no one online, I take it. Councillors, disclosure of interest. Does any councillor wish to make any disclosure of interest? If not, thank you. That will be minuted. No, sorry, did you want to make one?
I have an EV, yes.
Oh, you've got an EV vehicle. That's all right. Well, you're the lucky one with the petrol at 260 at the moment. Okay, thank you, Councillor Kassim. Alrighty, minutes of previous meeting. Councillors that were present, I wasn't at the last meeting. Could I have councillors present at the meeting to move and second confirmation of the minutes? Who was here? Ooh. Someone must have joined the meeting just now. Yeah. Okay, so who was Councillor Kassim? Sorry about the last meeting. Councillor Kassim, Mayor McDougall for the last minutes. Okay, no items by exception. We on to number 6, reports. Now, we do have 4 reports for tonight. Our first report, CS 26.014, response to notice of motion towing of vehicle obstructing driveways. An interesting topic, that one. I did read the whole report because I've always complained, remember? Okay, a summary, please. Sorry, I'll have a mover. We do have an officer's recommendation, mover and seconder, moved by Councillor Kassim, seconded by Councillor Poulos. On the that's about notice of motion towing of vehicles obstructing driveways. Maybe if you would you like to move it, Councillor Poulos, or yeah, sure. Okay, Phoebe, thanks.
At its meeting on the 22nd of October 2025, Council resolved to acknowledge community concerns regarding vehicles obstructing driveways, collect complaint data and review the effectiveness of the Inner West Council's enforcement program and provide a progress update early 2026. The Compliance Unit have confirmed that the enforcement of blocked driveways has consistently been treated as a priority, with rangers and parking officers responding promptly to complaints under the Public Spaces Unattended Property Act of 2021, which applies to all councils across the state. A review of the Inner West Council's process indicates their approach is broadly consistent with Bayside's current practices in both councils. Residents must report driveway obstructions directly to council. Officers attend to assess the situation. Fully blocked driveways may result in fines and towing. Partially blocked driveways typically result in fines only, and towing is subject to operational constraints and cannot always be guaranteed. While Inner West may promote its program as a distinct initiative, it operates within the same legislative framework and relies on similar enforcement processes and limitations as Bayside. Complaints data that driveway obstructions is not a widespread issue as it may be reported. In 2024 and 2025 financial year, 731 complaints predominantly relate to partial obstructions, 6 fully blocked driveways with 2 vehicles being impounded, and in the 2025 to 2026 financial year to date, 686 complaints have been received with 1 vehicle being impounded. Council officers respond to each complaint based on severity. Fully blocked driveways trigger immediate action, including attempts to contact the owner where necessary, towing and impounding. Partial blocked driveways result in infringement notices and towing generally not required. To improve customer experience, Council has enhanced its online reporting system by introducing a dedicated category for blocked driveway complaints. This allows for easier reporting, improving tracking and better data collection, while not altering Council's operational processes. Overall, the Compliance Unit considers its current approach effective to existing legislative frameworks, providing sufficient authority to manage driveway obstructions and current practices aligned with those of other councils, including Inner West. The Compliance Unit will continue to monitor the issues and respond promptly to residents' concerns.
Thank you, Phoebe. Just a question. In the report, it does say officers are available till 9:30. So does that mean after 9:30 p.m. there wouldn't be any response from council?
It would not be from council. They can call the police, and the police can act as well because they have access to. Well, what council does is, when it's a blocked driveway, they would contact the police to find the, if they've got the contact details of the driver, the police have those contact details if they have it on their records, and they would do exactly what the council would do, is try and find the driver. So they do have the option to contact the police.
Okay, just on the driveway, I think you remember we had that incident where the police attended because the resident living at the property was parking in their own driveway.
Yes.
It's not quite clear that you are allowed to park in your own driveway in this report. Would that be included as an educational tool, I guess?
So where somebody calls the council and says somebody has blocked their driveway, they have to legitimately say it's blocked their driveway. So council would knock on the door, hello, is this your vehicle? If they say yes, it's their vehicle, we will not fine somebody that's blocking their own driveway because parking is limited within our LGA.
But is it somewhere in our reporting that you are allowed? Because I know with Waverley Council, they have it where specifically it does say that you're allowed to park your own driveway.
So we can't put that in policy because it is a road rule that we're not the only ones that actually can enforce that road rule. So the New South Wales Police can enforce that road rule. So if the New South Wales Police come along and say it restricts an ambulance from accessing a property, the New South Wales Police can actually issue that same infringement to that
even
vehicle.
If it's the owner of that property?
Even if it's the owner of that car.
Sure. Now, in our policy, where do we include unregistered vehicles? Because we're having a lot of problems with vehicles, especially people living close to the airport.
So currently council's impounding policy is up for renewal. So hopefully in the next City Services Committee, there'll be a new impounding policy that comes to council, which will address all those issues on how council will tackle that problem. And it's basically, again, under the same legislation.
Sure. Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? Okay, so, sorry, Councillor.
Thank you for the report. I didn't feel like point 3 really got adequately addressed, not clearly, that a report on the effectiveness of the newly introduced Inner West Council's driveway enforcement program, including legal and financial implications, be provided to council with options for a Bayside policy to improve compliance and deter illegal parking across driveways. I mean, it wasn't clearly indicated to me that what the parameters of the Inner West policy are. I've Googled it and I can find more information from a Google search than that is in the report, which is concerning to me that that part of the motion has been skipped over in terms of the reporting.
What Inner West are doing are exactly what Bayside Council are doing. They've only promoted they've promoted the legislation on their website. So basically they're using the same public spaces and an unattended property legislation, and they've put it on their website and promoted it heavily as opposed to what Bayside Council have done. So what we've now done is put an actual physical reporting tab to assist residents, and we've promoted it further on our social media post saying council has now got this easy, accessible way for you to report it, as opposed to what Inner West have gone and said, because they've got smaller lanes and they've got tighter areas for parking and the area is more heavily condensed than what Bayside is, they get more reports of blocked driveways. And yes, it is a higher incident reporting. They have over 4,000 complaints per year of people blocking their driveways because of back lanes and driveway, like I've said, where the streets are tighter. They've promoted it and made it a more bigger issue in their area than it is for our area.
Sure.
Okay, I understand that, and I can see that from the Inner West Council's website as well, but I do think that level of detail should have been in the report for posterity, because not everybody attends these meetings or watches the recording. I also just question whether or not we think this is a small issue or a big issue. I mean, it seems to me that you're having one report per day. I would imagine that more of that is in summer and more of that is in Ward 5, because I feel like as a Ward 5 councillor, I get a lot of complaints about this issue, especially over summer when the parking is in demand. So I do think it is a big issue for our local community. I think it does create a lot of stress and concern, even though it might not be as big an issue as the Inner West, clearly, but I do think it is still a big issue. So I think if there's anything we can do to further promote the rules around this to our community, so that they are really aware of the penalties of doing the wrong thing, I think that would be helpful.
We can, when we do the policy for the new public spaces and unattended articles policy, we can promote it with this. These controls are in this policy. So when we come to launch that policy in the Have Your Say, and then when the policy hopefully gets adopted by council, we can actually increase the social media presence on that and do a social media blitz, a campaign, that's the word, campaign on how it impacts and how you can do the reporting and how council can assist residents.
I think that would be good, because I've had a number of residents come to me asking to find out about getting line marking, because this is a frequent issue for them, especially around Brighton Les Sands. But the line marking costs the individual resident, I think it's $350 or thereabouts in the new budget. So, it's substantial. None of them have actually put their hand up to pay for it, because they feel that should be a council job, actually. But, so I think the more we can do to raise awareness, especially of those summer periods when there's the high densification in our town centres around the beach, would be really helpful.
Yep, we can include that.
Yeah, but on that, do we have like specifically for each ward, like when you get a complaint, can we find out where's most of the complaints? Is it, Ward 1 or Ward 5 or 4? Do you have that?
Yes, we do have that data.
We have
So
that
we can
data.
include that data in the report that comes
Okay,
to council.
that'll be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Councillors, any other questions for Phoebe? No, thank you. So we have an officer recommendation, move and second, and all in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. Thank you, councillors. We've got, and thank you, Phoebe.
Thank you.
Second report, CS 26.015, annual events report for 2026-2027. Move and second that, please, councillors. Moved by Councillor Kasim, seconded by Councillor Peter Hoff. Thank you. Who's given us a summary on that? Thank you.
Good evening, councillors. The report before you outlines the proposed schedule of events for 2026-27 financial year. This program builds on the success of the previous year, during which Bayside delivered more than 30 events representing a total investment of approximately $1.5 million and significant cultural, social and economic returns for our community. Key highlights of the 25-26 program included the Spring Fair in East Lakes, the Food and Wine Festival in Mascot, the grant-funded Diwali Festival on King Street, Rockdale, Creative Carlton held recently, also supported through grant funding, and Carols by the Sea at Brighton Le Sands. These events have proven to be consistently successful and continue to form the backbone of Council's events program. I'm pleased to note that the Diwali is now proposed as a permanent fixture in the program, and Creative Carlton will continue for a further 2 years as per the grant. For 2026-27, we are proposing a small number of targeted refinements to the program. These adjustments are designed to strengthen outcomes, enhance community pride, and ensure Council continues to deliver value and responsible use of resources. The two key changes being proposed are increased investment in Carols by the Sea, positioning it as Bayside Council's flagship Christmas event, and the introduction of an Australia Day concert in Borroley Park. Carols by the Sea, within Council's existing Christmas program, Carols by the Sea is our strongest and most well-attended event. It has broad appeal, particularly for families, and benefits from its iconic location on the shores of Botany Bay. For 2026-27, it is proposed that the existing Christmas budget allocation be used to elevate Carols by the Sea into Bayside's signature festive event. This would include engaging a headline act and professional performers to complement our local community groups and enhancing overall production to create a truly standout experience. With strong promotion and clear messaging, this event has the potential to become the Christmas gathering for all Baysiders. As we celebrate our 10th anniversary as one local government area, it is especially important that our major events unite the whole community, east and west alike. To further enhance the sense of occasion, we are also investigating the feasibility of a Brighton Sparkle initiative. This would involve installing fairy or festive lighting in several of the large established foreshore trees, effectively creating a living Christmas tree light display. A ceremonial turning on of the lights could then be held at the conclusion of the carols, adding a memorable and meaning finale. Australia Day. The proposed Australia Day concert at Borroley Park Botany would utilise the budget previously allocated to the Botany Pool Family Fun Day. Currently, we have a working title calling it Working Together Hand in Hand. The event is intended to acknowledge and celebrate First Nations culture through performance, while also recognising the diversity that defines our community. The focus is on inclusion, shared experience, and celebrating our collective strengths and sense of belonging. The day could also conclude with a 15-minute fireworks display as a unifying and celebratory grand finale. Other matters that I'll just bring to your attention in the report. The background report also outlines the current position regarding New Year's Eve fireworks. Councillors are advised that the estimated cost to reinstate these is now in excess of $500,000. This is largely due to the requirement for the road closure along Grand Parade, as well as increased infrastructure such as toilets and security along the foreshore. There is no current budget allocation for this within the program. Additionally, the report also notes that the tender for the provision of the 6 Christmas trees is due for renewal in 2027, with the tender process to commence in September or October this year. The full events program for 2026-27 has been included as an attachment to the report, along with a detailed review of each event delivered in 25-26. We respectfully seek councillors' endorsement to proceed with the proposed program and, of course, welcome any suggestions or directions for refinement within the current budget allocation. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Councillors, any questions? Yeah, Councillor Christine.
Thank you very much. And thank you for that report. And thank you for the amazing events which happen all year. They're fantastic.
Thank you.
I guess I was quite interested in what you said about in the report about the cost of these Christmas trees. And I am interested in what it would cost to have more, like throughout the year, fairy lights in our town centres, maybe, you know, like down Botany Road, you know, around parks, places which people go to all the time. Because I think the function of lights as such, or trees, you know, lights on trees or lights anywhere, is to give people a sense of brightness and just it's a sort of a pick me up, really. You know, it's a little bit of joy, pick me up.
Similar to King Street.
Yeah, you know, and I would be interested in the relative cost of doing that throughout the places where people are going to be all the time, you know, rather than having them in half a dozen trees for, you know, a month or a week, or, you know, like a couple of weeks or whatever it is that they're up there for. Because I think that could make a difference also to our local businesses if it's near the town centres, or just to how people feel. So and we're going to have one or two Christmas trees, you know, one in the east, one in the west, and, you know, and just save the money and use it the rest of the year, is what I'm wondering.
So we can certainly look at that if that's what if the council wish to go that way.
Sure. Mayor McDougall.
Can I just comment on the Christmas trees as well? I mean, I think we also get criticised for the trees being quite small, which is quite bizarre that we're paying $40,000 a tree. Can we look at, you know, I think there was a resolution to have one tree in each ward that, you know, dating back to the last time this happened. But can we look at what the comparative cost is for having two larger trees, maybe, you know, one in Rockdale or Brighton or something, and another one in Mascot or Botany, and have a focal point?
Yeah, that's right.
So
As an option. I mean, I'm not
Yeah, I
wedded
guess
to
we could
anything,
go.
but it's a lot of money.
So how does that compare the cost of the 6 trees of 230,000 compared to last? Is that what we paid last year?
That's we pay each year.
It's a lot of money, isn't it? Yeah, yeah.
I don't know how to balance that.
Councillor Douglas.
I mean, I agree with what the comments. I think investing in additional permanent fairy lights and also condensing it to 2 larger trees is a good idea. From personal experience, I was spending quite a bit of time doing swimming lessons at Bexley Pool in the lead up to Christmas, and it did seem a little bit superfluous to have a giant Christmas tree out the front of Bexley Pool. It was sort of an odd spot as well. It's not like a town centre, so it did feel like maybe that one at least wasn't in the right location.
I think you're right.
A lot of people saw it, but it was sort of odd because you were on your way to exercise. It wasn't like you were there to shop, or it wasn't bringing more business to the pool. I don't think people were attending the pool
Yeah.
to see the Christmas lights.
I think I tend to agree with that, because basically trees are lit up at night. So not many and not many people would be going to the car park at I think I would agree with that.
Yeah, we did have trouble trying to find a location where there was power and it was secure enough in Bexley. And then we came up with the pool.
Did we have one at Ron Rathbone space there?
And yeah,
I was vandalised. That's why that's a good spot though. That's quite a exposure. Like you've got the main road there.
But I mean, but that does militate
But
in
isn't it the
favour,
case you put a
yeah.
camera? I guess the question, you put a camera if that was the case.
to some degree that might assist. I think one of the things that the manager is suggesting is that, somewhat along the lines of what the mayor has said, that if we created a light up the trees in Brighton, what is your feeling about whether that would be a reasonable substitute for a tree in Brighton?
I think doing fairy lights around, decorating one of the big pine trees is a great idea. I think that's
Yeah.
it's local. Nobody else can do that. Like it's a same memorial park as well.
Yep.
There's a big tree.
Yeah.
I would just say though, I think in terms of lighting up the tree at the end of the carols event, maybe it's better to do it midway through the carols event, like on the onset of darkness, because you're looking up at the tree line. It's beautiful. There's sunset, the lights on the stage. If you could use like halfway through, I think as a parent, I don't stay till the end. It's too late for my small child. So a midway through the event could be nice for those who don't stick around for Santa Claus.
Absolutely. If it's dark, we could do the timing so that it's dark enough so that it does have an impact.
Can I just also creative comments on the carols by the sea? A few years ago, we had I think we had a couple of good years where we had Monica Trappiger and then Jay Lagaya, and those people really bring in young families, as I'm now finding out. But the programs had the Navy band and stuff early in the evening, and I feel we only moved to the kind of kids' Christmas carols late in the night when it's dark and people are already going home. So maybe a bit of a rethink about the running order to pace out the evening, particularly if we're investing more in it. It's worth doing a sort of review.
Good. Thanks, Member Dougal. Sorry, Councillor Poulos.
I've just got an offshoot sort of question with regards to the banners and flags that we have around the LGA. Just looking at, do we have a set schedule of what we put out and where? Only last week I still saw a Lunar New Year banner up in Mascot.
Yeah, there was normally we would have switched over to Anzac by now, and I'm hoping when I go down Botany Road tonight that they're there. The company who install them around Botany have had some issues with their truck. He's been very apologetic, but I said to him, if they're not up tonight, that's his last chance.
Yeah.
But he's assured me that they are up today. So
And do we have a set schedule?
we do have
of
a
what
schedule, yes. So
Be shared with the councillors on what goes up and when.
yeah, I can provide that to the councillors.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and also just how many we're putting up, because again, I saw in Bexley there's 3 flagpoles with only one women in Anzac up. Is that what we're meant to be doing? Because it looks a little bit bare and.
No, the flagpoles are supposed to be repaired and they're supposed to all be working.
Yeah.
But I'll follow that up as well. Whereabouts in Bexley?
Bexley Road.
Bexley Road.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Poulos. Councillor Morris.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's really worthwhile exploring redistributing some budget towards permanent fairy lights. We've talked about it for quite some time, and there's key locations in each ward where we could just make that a permanent fixture. There's around that Memorial Park in Mascot. There's along even out the front here. It is a town centre here in Botany, and along the Grand Parade. There's in every ward. I think you'd find a stretch of a couple hundred metres where we could look at investing permanently. I know there's challenges around ongoing maintenance. If memory serves me correct, SS Rock was looking at a broader supply availability using using some purchasing power across SS Rock, specifically for fairy lights that will help all councils. So depending on what it was, I would look at it. I'd be supportive of readjusting some of the budget to make that a permanent Bayside. So when people are in Bayside any night of the year, there's that feeling across these 5 town centres of, again, it only has to be 100 or 200 metres, but when you're entering or leaving, you know that this is Bayside. And I think that'd be a better investment than $200,000 on 6 Christmas trees for 2 weeks or a month. You know, I think that would be better. And then look at creatively 2 large trees, one that, as I said, potentially in the Mascot. Again, as you're coming into a massive pine tree or gum, whatever it might be, I think that'd be a better use of funds. And then the community, although there would be some backlash because we haven't got 15 Christmas trees, but look what we've got permanently. When you're going around at night, you know you're in Bayside as you're driving from east to west or north to south. You're driving through these centres and make that a hub, make that a part of Bayside. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Morrissey. Did you want to say no? Okay. Any other questions, Gail? If not,
I think I was going to,
yeah.
sorry, I was going to say you could also frame it as an eco-friendly Christmas alternative as well.
Sorry?
You could frame it as an eco-friendly Christmas alternative
yeah.
as well, because it's investing in something permanent, less plastic, less short-term nature. A frugal council in the middle of an energy crisis.
Sorry, final question, guys.
Yeah, thank you. Look, the only other thing I was going to comment on, I was going to do it in the next item on the Aboriginal Reconciliation Action Plan, but I was going to congratulate you on the events which are done, you know, to celebrate the our Aboriginal population, you know, particularly the hall, the fishing hall. That I think is just a huge hit. But also people have commented to me on how they've enjoyed the storytelling and, you know, these sorts of other smaller events. And it struck me when I read the Reconciliation Action Plan, which is just the next item, that a lot of the focus is sort of inwards, you know, on staff's relationship and staff's learning, you know, about reconciliation. But I wonder what we can do, if it is possible, to build in more into our year long, like not just NAIDOC week, you know, not just Reconciliation Week, but to build on a sort of like a more of a year long thing, like, you know, like maybe, you know, a weekly Aboriginal language class or a weekly dance class for kids, you know, Aboriginal dance class for kids, or a weekly Aboriginal storytelling class, or a monthly, you know, evening Aboriginal astrology night or something, you know, like just to sort of like think of some other things so that it's more sort of front of mind, and we're actually doing things with our residents more in terms of giving them an opportunity to you know, sort of share in Aboriginal culture more throughout the year. So it's just a normal part of the year, really. And you know, like that might be consulted with, obviously, with with our Wajuga Foundation and RAP committee. But you know, I was going to make that comment in the RAP report, but I think it is. I'm saying it now because I think it is relevant. It's actually relevant to events, if possible. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor.
Can I throw one more comment or a couple of comments out before we finish? Just a couple of thoughts on a couple of the events that have come up over the last year. So there was some conversation previously, and I know it didn't end up happening, but about moving our Ramadan event to a park. Because I don't know what other people's views are, but when we established it, there was really strong buy-in from the businesses on Wall Street, and that seems to have fallen away a bit. But also, I think the event's outgrown the space, and it costs a lot of money to hold it there. So whether we could look at moving it to a local park or using King Street is probably the really obvious one. Like, just use the same space that we now have infrastructure in for, so that we're not rather than spending more than half the budget closing the road, we can invest that in the event.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Just on that, because we're having a Ramadan night on Forest Road, is it something we could sort of combine it there and save the money for road closure? I think you might have thought of that, Meredith, before. We've spoken about that before.
Yes, through the chair. The events team are looking at other locations. We have worked very closely for the last 2 years, and particularly this current year, with Sweet Beirut to help to deliver that successful event. The space is probably a little constrained for it to be our only location. But we are looking at different parks to see if we could find somewhere that both the stall holders that go to the Bexley function at the moment could move to a location close by with us and do one large event in a park or in an existing road closure. So we'll continue to work with Sweet Bay Route over the organisation of that.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, on the Ramadan festivals, I went to the Sweet Bay Route one, the Ramadan nights, and also went to one which is, you know, privately organised by the mosque in Riverine Park, which I thought they did an excellent job actually. But one of the things which I noticed was also how they really made an effort there to have not just food but also opportunities for people to buy things, like, you know, clothes and all this sort of stuff, which actually makes it quite a attractive thing for lots of people to come to. So if there's an opportunity to do that sort of thing in our council event, then I think that's useful. The only other comment I'd make about the Bexley event was that it was a little bit, I guess I'd say, noisy, and that sounds a bit strange, but noisy because of the food trucks, you know, and whether or not it's possible to specify somehow that we have more, like there was one the Murad brothers had a, you know, they were making their own barbecue,
boys.
butcher thing, you know, and that was great because they didn't have the food truck going, apart from the fact the food was good and it was good value, etc. But it's, if we can have more of that, I think it actually makes the environment more pleasant to be in. Yeah, so that's just a suggestion. I don't know if we can specify like a maximum number of food trucks or something, or put them all in one corner so they're all making a noise somewhere, you know, on their own. But that would, I think, make the event more pleasant, is what I'd say.
I think it's been quite successful over the years, and I think, to the Mayor's point, saving money on the road closure would be a good idea. Yeah. Okay, so we've got a office recommendation, move and second. All in favour say aye, against declare it carried. Thank you, councillors. On the next one, CS 26.016, Draft Innovate Reconciliation Action Plan 2026 to 2028. So we've got an office recommendation, mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Kasim, seconded by Mayor McDougall. Thank you. Who's speaking to that as a...
So, Chair, Rani is an apology tonight, so I'm going to say a few words on this, and I have 3 or 4 slides that we'll go through.
Okay, great. Thanks, GM.
Thank you. So tonight I'm introducing Innovate, the implementation change as part of the Reconciliation Action Plan framework. This is the second iteration of our Reconciliation Action Plan. Between 2022 and 2024, Council had the Reflect RAP, which was really about preparing our organisation for reconciliation. It was an opportunity to review policies, raise awareness amongst staff, and identify some champions for the RAP. Now we're moving into the second phase. We are, and I guess consistent with the comments earlier made by Councillor Kasim, we're now starting to have a more outward-facing approach to the actions. This phase is really much more about delivering on the reconciliation actions, building on the strengths and the relationships that have been forged in the first iteration. So the framework. So to have an eligible Innovate RAP, we have to follow the guides and the templates that are provided to us by Reconciliation Australia. And that ensures that everyone who is adopting the RAP and going through the RAP process is doing so in a consistent way. The RAP framework for this phase has 51 mandatory actions that the organisation has to undertake to fulfil our obligations. Those minimum requirements include, as we've set up there, the vision, information about the organisation, about the RAP itself, and achievements made in the previous RAP. And lastly, and very importantly, you will have seen the action plan. As I said, those 51 deliverables are non-negotiable. They must be delivered to fulfil our obligations to have a satisfactory completion. This organisation, with the consultation that we've undertaken, we have more than 51 actions, so we're doing the mandatories, and we've also created some additional actions which we've called out in our report, and that's been as a result of some of the consultation that we've undertaken. On the screen, you'll see a snapshot of the consultation that has been done to date. So obviously we started our consultation with the RAP working group and with our First Nations staff. It's then very important that that was checked for its deliverability with our staff, who will be responsible for undertaking and overseeing the actions that are being proposed. It went back to the RAP working group for their final input. We then went to the Gajaga Foundation and asked them to undertake a deeper consultation for us with Aboriginal elders, with traditional owners, with both the local Aboriginal land councils and the local Aboriginal community members. That was a really deep exercise and a really thorough exercise. And pleasingly, that consultation yielded no additional deliverables or changes to what had already been drafted. We then went as a final step back to the land councils separately. We went to Metro and to the La Perouse land councils. And the final step in this is another mandatory step. It must go, our draft must go to Reconciliation Australia for their sign-off. So just in very brief summary form, on the left we have our Reflect RAP, our first RAP that was finalised in 2024. That's our foundational piece. We now, as we say, move from that to Innovate, which is much more around starting to deliver, to implement some of the strategies, to certainly deepen our staff's understanding through cultural awareness and other activities that are in the action plan. And it is also, we capture in there some of the things that we will undertake to do in terms of Reconciliation Week, NAIDOC Week, and then how we will report on progress, how we will monitor and how we'll report on the achievements, the challenges and the learnings that have been undertaken. I just want to call out one thing that we have, we're recommending that we would do that is additional to the mandatories. As councillors will know, we have had a RAP working group that has overseen our first RAP. That was made up of First Nations community members and our staff. In the second iteration of the RAP, it is mandatory to have a RAP working group, but it is of a very different complexion. It is meant to be internal, those with responsibility for overseeing the delivery of the action plan. So that's where your accountability will sit and where you will be monitoring and reporting against the action plan. So while it's called the same thing, it's quite a different group to the group we had in the first RAP. So what we are recommending is, based on the fact that we don't want to lose all of the goodwill, the relationships, the advice that we've been receiving from the RAP working group, we're suggesting that council has another group, the RAP Advisory Group. The RAP Advisory Group will be basically made up of the members of our first RAP working group. So it'll largely be members of our Aboriginal community, our First Nations stakeholder agencies, all of the people that have supported us and helped us to get where we are today. So we would recommend that we have two groups. We have the mandatory working group to oversee the action plan and actually do the deliverables, and we have an advisory group of key members of the local Aboriginal community who will support us and be one of the major groups that we will go to as we seek feedback throughout the delivery of this next version of the RAP. The report is quite detailed. It gives you it includes the actual draft RAP, which has, I'm pleased to say, gone through Reconciliation Australia. They've signed off on it. There's no actions in there that they're not supportive of, including the ones that we've added to the mandatories. And now commend it to you for council to consider and for final adoption.
Thank you, GM. That really sounds very complicated.
It's taken a while.
and comprehensive. No, well done.
That was the simple version.
Thank you, GM. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Kasim.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just trying to understand it.
That's what I said. It's complicated.
It was a little bit complicated. So just in terms of the accountability framework, you're saying it's basically internal staff, it's senior staff who are overseeing the delivery and then making a report, because I think it said something about quarterly reports on how things have been delivered to, I think it's probably coming to councillors, but it's also, will it go also to this RAP advisory group?
So obviously this is a new relationship,
Yeah.
and it will be working through what is the most effective. I would think that we will both consult with the advisory group when we are planning how we will deliver the actions, and also reporting to them on progress of how we're going and delivering. So we want to keep that really good relationship.
absolutely.
And I think that way that group will be involved at each stage of delivery.
Yeah, that's great, because I would see the accountability going to them and to some extent to us. The other thing was just, it was sort of, I think, mentioned a little bit, but just to make sure, like some of the things which I've previously put in terms of council motions, etc., around the dual signage initiative and the agreement, I think the last meeting, that we would have regular, annually there would be basically a rolling program of doing more in terms of our dual signage. Is that included in the RAP? Because I would have thought that it probably should be, and something which naturally would make sense for it to be reported back on to both of those groups.
Yes, that's correct. So interpretive signage and dual naming is definitely included, as is an Aboriginal heritage strategy. There are a range of, I think, quite practical tools that capture some of the things that you've already put forward in your norms.
Right. That's great. Thank you very much.
Yes. Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Bredar.
Just to say thank you. It looks like really good work, and the reconciliation work is a maturity pathway. So the higher you get in the maturity, the more outreach is going to be done. Just go to Councillor Kasim's question before. So congratulations on the next step of maturity in this phase. And I know it's a lot of work. So yeah,
It is.
that's all I was gonna say.
Absolutely. Councillor Kasim.
So just on that, so the comments I made earlier about sort of like more regular events, I guess, and outward focusing events for our residents, there is space in the RAP as it exists, or is that, or do I need to suggest an amendment to it to incorporate more of that?
The RAP can't be amended. They're mandatory. That is, and look, we actually asked whether we could skip this part of the process and go straight to the next stage, because in some ways we felt as an organisation we were ready to go to the third stage of the RAP, which you're not allowed to do. But I think with things like obviously continuing the Wurri Rise, but maximising the use of the Yarning Circle, the Bush Tucker Forest. We've got oral history program, capturing the storytelling. There's a range of things in there that I think there's enough flexibility built into the action plan that we will be able to see quite a lot of deliverables coming out of that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, GM. Any other questions? If not, we've got a office recommendation, move seconded. All in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. Thank you, councillors. Now we're on to our final report, CS 26.017, Electric Vehicle Fast Charging Grant, Round 4. Mover and a second, moved by Councillor Bredehoff, seconded by Councillor Kassim. We'll get a bit of a summary on that. Oh, sure.
Good evening. So the report in front of you is for the first EV charging grant, Route 4, from the Department of Climate Change, Energy, the Environment and Water. So the Department of the Climate Change announced the Route 4 for fast EV charging grant to support charging operator in development, ownership and operate of the fast charging station throughout the New South Wales. The report is recommended to endorse 13 council-owned or managed car parks as a potential site for EV fast charging stations under this program. Eligible charging operator may receive grant of up to $300,000 per site to cover covering 40% of the project costs to fund, own and operate the infrastructure of EV charging stations. Under the grant, the council involvement with this will be limited to act at the site hosting for those as a landowner to enter into the commercial licensing agreement with no capital or operational expense incurred by council. Each nominated car park must accommodate at least 4 fast charging bays, offering to public access for a minimum of 12 hours per day, 7 days a week. And with that 4 charging bay have to be one as for accessible parking. The selected in the proposal for car park is situated in an area such as along the foreshore, in town centres, aquatic centres, sporting field, and which with a feature high visibility and good accessibility to the public. The endorsement at this stage will enable charging operator to conduct feasibility study and include the site for their grant applications. So once the grant application approved, we still go back to council for final approval of any installations. With that, at that point in time, council will decide whether we're going ahead with the site selections. So the presentation with the map, I got the map in there with the 13 locations. Sorry, is the dot point is quite small, but the majority is on the Rockdale on-clip areas, and then also on the Bexley sides, which is Ward 4, which is fall into the priority area that proposed by the state government, that this area they want to focus for this route. And this is one example of the Barton Park, which is on the list, proposed list that we propose for 4 dedicated parking at the car park near the Beswick Street, also near the substations to the right, bottom right corner there. And this is this is just example of what it look like for two fast charger and 4 parking bay, which is one accessible parking bay, and the other 3 will be across the line there. So that is just an overview of the proposed location as well as the charging stations.
Great. Thank you. That looks pretty good. Just on that, some of the sites on here where the car park, where it actually closes after, I think, 9 p.m., does that mean like most of the charges are meant to be for charging during the day?
Yes, through that, that's correct. Is the requirement a minimum of 12 hours per day available to public? So if the car park open, let's say from 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. until 9 p.m. is meet the requirement. With the fast charging station like this, it's going to take roughly between 30 minutes to an hour to get the fully charged. So during the day, available to public is quite accessible.
Sure. Just a question, if, I mean, I'm not quite familiar with EV cars, but if your vehicle is fully charged and you remain in that spot, do you continue to be charged for parking and not being charged?
So with the common practice right now will be a leeway, which is 15-minute grey time. After that, the operator can put in the idling fee, which is a normal practice, $1 per minute. So
Right.
just to make sure the charging of the EV owner need to finish the charging and move on.
Sure. So basically, if they were to stay longer, it'll be like $1 a minute.
Yeah, that's correct.
That prevents them from staying. Yeah, sure. No, thank you for that. Councillors, any other question? Councillor Douglas, yeah.
Yeah, and there's also a slow ramping at the end of the charge as well. So you sort of are not incentivized to fully charge.
Right.
You anyway. I just a couple on the locations, and I think this is excellent, by the way. Like I think we have all had a big wake up call around fuel security, and the proposition of electric vehicles is becoming much more attractive. The Angela and Estes Aquatic Centre car park, though, I don't think is suitable for this. There is already such a high demand and road rage that I've witnessed multiple times in that car park. So I think taking 4 sites out of there would contribute to road rage and EV hate, actually. There is like parking up Preddy's Lane. There's quite a lot of parking there that council hasn't sort of formalised. And I just wondered if there was any plans for that, because I think that, you know, I do agree it's good to have that multiple use where you can go for a swim and do the charging at the same time.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah.
Making sure that we're talking about the same location. Through the chair, yes, we're working on a design at the moment to increase the number of parking bays up towards the top of Preddy's Lane where it meets the depot, the back of the depot. I think we can get somewhere between 8 and 10 additional spaces up there.
Yeah, there's the sort of gravel area across from
Yeah.
houses where I'd say there's probably more than 8 or 10 actually.
I think with a turning circle, but I mean, they're looking to maximise what they can have up there.
I mean, you know, you guys put it forward, but I do think that one it will be controversial. The Angela and Estes.
Yeah, through the chair, with this grant, the operator will have more than 2 years to finish the installation. So with the new development for the car park, we can factor that one in, and we will talk to the charging operator for those factors. So they have to bear in mind when they do feasibility study, they have to take that into account.
Another location that I was going to suggest is Cahill Park. There is some parking on the Princes Highway that isn't oversubscribed, and I think that would be a nice location which would attract local business. And also at the Rowers Club, there's, I don't know what the
There's
tenure is
one
of that,
there.
but there is significant space on the left and right-hand side of the Rowers Club for electric vehicle parking.
But that
Okay, so
that's
that was
private.
my
private-
question around
private
tenure.
property.
But then we'll go back to Cahill Park, I think, which would service then the high density area.
So that size, actually, we've been look at it, and then we are gonna review and see if we can include it on for this round.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. Councillor Kassim.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to suggest the same thing. And I have previously suggested that spot in Kale Park, but I was told when I suggested it that there was some concern about safety and liability, but has that concern gone since I last suggested it?
Through the chair, I think the earlier discussions were around charging stations with advertising. And I think we were exploring the distance between the actual charging station and the advertising. And there was a request for the advertising to be very close to the traffic, so very high visibility. That was a proposal that was put to the council last year. I think there were concerns raised about that, about having large-scale advertising right on the highway itself. These obviously do not involve advertising. It's not a separate structure. And I think if it could be positioned further back to as far away from the highway within that car park, then there shouldn't be safety concerns.
Okay, well, that's great. The only other thing I was going to comment was, because it is pretty stark, that map of yours is pretty stark in terms of east and west. But I'm sure that there are, for example, there must be fast chargers in Westfield, in, that sort of stuff, like in East Gardens, like one would assume. And, so I guess what I'm wondering, when you present this, when you put this out, whether it would be useful to sort of overlay a map of where other private charging facilities are which are not on council land, so that people can see, well, this is what's available to me. I can go to one of these, or these other ones are also available, because it does look a bit bare on the east side.
Yes, this is state government already have that map, and that's where they identify the priority area that they want to focus on this route, which is focus on Rockdale, Enclave, Woolite Creek. And the whole point is that's why a majority of the proposed sites is on the western side rather than eastern side. Because we also have the Borneo Aquatic Centre is one of the sites that is, even though it's under construction, we have a design to include the EV charging there. It means that the infrastructure ready for operator to come in and install. So it's kind of like we nominate the site that is not fall into priority locations, but they could be funded through the program because it's really not ready to go, just go in and install the charger. So that's the idea that we try to propose to the state government, that not including your priority zone, but we're ready to go. Give us the money, give the operator the money so they can install the charger there.
Sure, no, that's great. I'm just thinking in terms of public presentation, when this goes out, it would be useful to have people see where all the fast chargers are available. That's all I'm suggesting.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Kassim. With the grant, it's capped at 300. Is that correct? And what is the cost to council if?
So it's no cost to council. The grant will be provide to the charging operator with up to $300,000 and up to 40% of the total cost.
Right.
So if some location need to upgrade the substations, that's going to be significant cost to the operator, but they will have to fund through to the project and no cost to council.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? If not, we've got an officer in motion, moved and seconded. All in favour say aye. Against, declare carried. Thank you, councillors. That being our final report, I declare meeting closed at 7:35. Thank you so much for attending.
in a polite and professional manner. Keep communication factual, use appropriate language and tone. Do not use any defamatory or derogatory remarks. I also ask councillors to observe the requirements under the Code of Meeting Practice and Meeting Etiquette. All present are reminded that YouTube video recording is an official record of council and will be accessible via YouTube in accordance with the Code of Meeting Practice. No other recordings are permitted, and all present should ensure that there are no video recordings, audio recordings or photographs taken. In case of emergency, please follow the instructions of council staff and then exit via the town hall foyer and proceed to the evacuation point. I would like to acknowledge the Bidjigal clan, the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and work, and acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I pay my respects to elders past and present. The following apologies have been received from Councillor Boudelet and Councillor Sarabanovsky. I believe there are no other apologies. That's all. And no leave of absence. We have, though, a request for attendance via audio-visual link from Councillor Dusku. I'd like to have a motion from someone. Move in second. Yes, Councillor Brederhoff and Councillor Douglas to accept that. Thank you. All in favour or against? Everyone agrees. Thank you. Does any councillor wish to make any disclosures of interest? None, and none from Councillor Dusku online. Someone will have to tell me if because I can't.
No,
see. Thank you. Good, thank you. Can I ask two councillors who were present at the meeting to move and second the confirmation of the minutes? Yes, Mayor and Councillor Brederhoff. Thank you very much. All right, there are no items by exception, so I think we can start with, I understand, two reports on the agenda being done together, the draft operational plan and budget for public exhibition and a supplementary report on the operational plan and budget for public exhibition. Do I have a mover for that, please? Yes, Councillor Brederhoff, and seconded Councillor Douglas, and a officer's report then, please. Thank you.
Through the chair. Apologies, through the chair, councillors. The integrated planning and reporting framework was developed by the state government, as you have seen from me before, to hopefully move forward. Sorry. For us to identify, plan, fund and report on our service and outcomes for our community. The report that we are considering today is the draft operational plan and budget for 2026-27, and the draft fees and charges. It is a separate document, but all part of the same document. These are plan and fund reports for meeting the framework for the IPNR. Draft operational plan and budget details the actions and budgets being delivered in 26-27. It includes the draft fees and charges. We have a requirement to exhibit it for 28 days, and it must be adopted by the 30th of June for us to operate from 1 July. I'm presenting on the draft operational plan, and my colleagues from finance will be presenting on the budget, and then we'll come back to a wrap up at the end of this, which talks about the community engagement activities planned, etc. So how does this plan fit in? The CSP is the 10-year strategic document that where the community tells us what their aspirations are for Bayside. From that, we developed a delivery program, which is for the 4-year term of council. And then each year we have an operational plan and draft budget for delivering that on the delivery program. This is the second operational plan for that delivery program. The operational plan includes the Bayside area people and council, the 10 bold moves that we have for the organisation, who we work with, events and budget snapshots. The next section is what we will do. We have the operational plan actions sorted by each theme of the community strategic plan, and at the back of the document is the budget with the capital projects program, revenue policy, etc. A couple of new features in the operational plan this year. The Who We Work With page, which has a snapshot of organisations and community groups, etc., that we work with to deliver for our community. It's a way of showing how we partner and advocate to get the job done, as well as delivering separately on responsibilities of council. So this is a new addition to the page so we can acknowledge their contribution to the actions of council. Another new feature that we have included this year is we've split the action pages into two separate formats. The first being, the goal of this was to make the document more community friendly and easier for people to understand and read. The first page at the beginning of each theme is called Council in Action pages. We have pulled out some of the activities that are ongoing and that show how we deliver for the community. And there are also statistics in there about parks, number of parks and number of tennis courts, all that sort of thing that relate to the services that we're delivering through this operational plan. And then the following pages under each theme again are the higher profile actions that are being delivered throughout the year. So all of this is still being delivered. We're just showing it differently in the plan. Things that we've included in the higher profile actions, for example, are the 10 bold moves, any councillor or community priorities, any new initiatives that we're rolling out 26, 27, and anything that we want to promote or celebrate. So we have separated them into the specific action pages. Budget.
Through the chair, this evening I will be presenting Council's draft 26-27 budget. So the draft budget was prepared based on the information available at a point in time using these assumptions, considering legislative requirements, historical data, as well as future operations of Council. We've applied these assumptions to Council's latest full-year actuals for 24-25, in addition to the indexation applied for current year. The only exceptions are towards the rates and annual charges, where the rate pack was set by IPART and applied to the current year's actual rates. And the employee cost is budgeted based on the establishment. Here's the draft income statement. We are budgeting for 262 million of operating income next year, with 235 million of operating expenditure. This leads to an operational result of 26 million, and after taking out the capital grants and contributions, the net result is $8 million surplus. We'll explain a little bit more about it, the underlying meaning in a couple of slides. For the capital and operating grants, we only budget for those that have been secured, including those recurring year on year. As we secure more grants throughout the year, we'll bring in the income and their corresponding expenditure budget through quarterly reviews. We are also waiting for more details regarding the M6 active transport corridor before we incorporate it into the budget. So here's the cash budget results for 26-27. The capital expenditure here represents only the capital component of the CPP program. By next financial year, Council will have repaid all its external loans. With the movement in reserves, this results in a cash budget of 52K. So the first column here is the operating result before considering any of the restrictions, which is what we showed you a little earlier. So let's talk about the restrictions that should be considered to get to the general operational result. From the income side, the budgeted rates and annual charges include about 63 million in restricted income, such as the domestic waste levy, infrastructure levy, stormwater levy, local area funds, and community safety levy. In addition to that, around 1.2 million in other revenue is restricted, which relates to the restricted portion of the ex gratia payment that Council receives from Sydney Airport in lieu of rates. These funds are set aside for projects mutually agreed by Council and the Sydney Airport. The capital grants and contributions are restricted to fund capital projects and cannot be used for operational purpose, even though they appear as income in our P&L. Based on the current reserve balance, approximately 78% of it relates to developer contributions and VPAs. Interest income generated from these funds are not available for operational purposes and are transferred to reserves. So looking at the expense side, costs being covered by restricted income, such as domestic waste-related expenses and other special levy-related expenditure. The remaining 2.7 and 2.4 million restrictions are related to ongoing IT strategy project and capital works that are operational in nature, such as demolition work. When you remove all the restrictions portions, we are left with a general operational result of a deficit of 9 million. This shortfall indicates the amount that council requires to fully fund its depreciation expense for next year. And historically, this is funded through capital grants throughout the year. And as we mentioned earlier, only secured grants have been incorporated into the budget. Hence, this will be revisited in quarterly reviews as council secures more grants. So here's the 26-27 draft CPP by project program. The budget for the Botany Aquatic Centre redevelopment for next year has already been incorporated within the buildings and property section. If you would like to look at the full CPP list by ward, please refer to page 49 to 53 of the DPOP document that is attached to this report. Out of the 104 million CPP projects budgeted for next year, 62 million is related to capital renewals, while 40 million is related to new capital works. The rest are operational in nature. On the screen, we've highlighted some of the key CPP projects and programs that council will be working on next year. The budgeted amount on the side only relates to the 26-27 portion and does not necessarily reflect the full cost of the project across multiple years. Here's the same data for CPP, but presented by funding sources. That ties back to the draft CPP of 104 million for next year. The general funded portion at the bottom is mainly related to purchasing of library resources, and the rest are either grant funded or reserve funded. I'll now hand over to Luke, who will talk about rates.
Thanks, Christina. Through the chair, this evening I'll be presenting the draft rates and annual charges for the 26-27 financial year. On the 30th September last year, IPART set the rate peg for the 26-27 financial year. For the rating year commencing 1 July 2026, the rate peg limit for council has been determined at 3.9%. This increase results in total rates income rising to $120.8 million for 26-27, which is approximately 4.5 million higher than the current financial year. In addition, council received an updated land valuations from the Valuer-General this year. This is a triennial event, so every 3 years we will be required to update our rates data with updated information from the Valuer-General. These valuations directly impact how rates are distributed across ratepayers. The Valuer-General assessed the total unimproved land value across Bayside Council area, increasing by 9.6% over the past 3 years, for a total land valuation of $60.7 billion. So in this slide here, there are two pie charts. The chart on the left shows a breakdown of total rates revenue. This includes ordinary rates, the infrastructure levy, the community safety levy, and the local area funds. Ordinary rates make up the majority of this revenue and account for 86% of total rateable income. The pie chart on the right shows the composition of ordinary rates by category. These categories include residential, business general, business industrial, business mall, business port, and farmland. Residential properties contribute the largest share of this and account for 70% of ordinary rate income. This slide here illustrates the change in ordinary rate income by category from the current financial year to the 26-27 draft budget. The majority of the increase has been allocated to business-related categories. Industrial and port categories have increased by 15%, while mall and general business categories have increased by 10%. As a result of this, the residential category as a whole has had a relatively modest increase of 0.8% compared to this year. It is also important to note that 72.5% of residential ratepayers will be on the minimum rate of $962.61. This slide here presents a detailed table that will be included in the revenue policy section of the draft 26-27 operational plan and budget. This information was also provided in the supplementary report circulated to the committee yesterday as well. And finally, with domestic waste services, they also form part of Council's annual charges. In the 26-27 draft budget, total domestic waste revenue is approximately $45 million. The domestic waste administration fee is proposed to increase to $179.86, which is an increase of about $7.50, while the standard domestic waste bin service charge, which is the 3 bins, red, green, yellow bin, is proposed to increase to $472.20, which represents an increase of about $15.90 a year. And now I'll hand back to Christina.
Thank you. So included in the operational plan and budget is also Council's draft fees and charges for 26-27. We have a total of 900 fees, and the major changes have been highlighted in the summary of changes table, which is attached to this report. Thank you.
Chair, we have with us tonight the Manager of Libraries and Lifestyle. She's going to take a deep dive into one of the changes that was just described, and that's building on the sports field financial modelling that councillors have been provided with information about previously. The suggested financial modelling for the coming year is being presented by Bobby Mayne now.
Thank you, Meredith. So just as an introduction, the purpose is to provide the committee with information on the review of Bayside sport field fees and to propose and discuss a fee subsidy framework that balances community benefit and user contributions. The scope of it focuses on the sport field hired regularly and seasonally via permit. It excludes the likes of Hensley and licensed sport fields that have their own cost modelling and fees. The approach, we follow on from the sports field costing model that was presented to Council recently, and we also benchmarked against other neighbouring councils. The next steps for this project is we're looking at engaging with the sports clubs and associations at the Sports Forum, which is coming up in April, 20th of April. Community consultation tied in with the IPNR framework, which is being presented tonight, and to report back to the committee and council on the outcome of those recommendations. Bit of a quick background, it's been a number of years. So pre-amalgamation, Botany Bay and Rockdale had their own fee structures. Fee harmonisation sort of commenced around 2018-19, kicked in around 19-20, interrupted a bit by COVID. We did try and introduce a fee model based on a bit of benchmarking back in 23, but Council resolved that we really needed some deep dive analysis on those fees and also looking at the impact against the user groups. So they resolved to revert back to the 22-23 fee structure for local and home clubs, which we have in place and still have in place today. During the last 12 months, Georgie has been going through a deep dive and done really good cost analysis of our sports fields. And also we've been reviewing our sports field fees, which we are now looking at today. Where have I gone? Hang on a moment. Field. Next slide. There we go. So in terms of cost models, this is a grass field, for a bit of a background. City of Botany Bay and a lot of councils split their fees through fields. So there was a full field rate and a junior and a mod rate, which you can see is 50% of that fee that was charged, and they had a lighting fee, and that was applied to all users. Rockdale's model had a senior junior, so it was more of a user-based fee, and juniors were at no charge, seniors were charged, and there was a lighting fee. Now, these are the fees that focus on our local hirers, not our commercial rates. They're a different category. In Bayside, at the current model for Grassfields is the $23.50 an hour and no charge for juniors. There is a lighting charge for Grassfields, and that's only applied to seniors. If we move across to the next slide, which is the synthetics, excluding Hensley, around August 2018, I think it was, we had ADOR synthetic field introduced for public use. There's a fee structure that was in place for a number of years, and then around 21-22, part of the harmonisation journey, Council resolved to lower the fee structure for synthetics, and that's what we apply today, which is with a little bit. So currently it's $10.80 for seniors only, no juniors pay or schools, and there's a lighting charge of $10.80. So if we look at the sports field fee subsidy framework that's proposed, we just wanted to double back to just focus on the field costing model that was presented recently. These are the annual expenses per field category. So we have synthetics, we have premiums, we have tier 2 and tier 3. Most of our fields fit in within the synthetic turf for community use for permit hire, as well as your tier 2. So that's what I'm focusing on for the presentation. But the concept of the model that's been presented today would be applied to those field categories. So the subsidy framework that we're proposing is that we take a baseline approach. So the hourly rate from the sports field cost model is used as the baseline, and then we determine a subsidy structure on that baseline cost. So local users, we're proposing the 75% subsidy is applied based against the cost model. Non-local users would have no subsidy, so they pay the full cost fee. And then the commercial users, looking at, the alignment and benchmarking and neutrality, it's around 3 times more of the actual fee model. Local schools, we're proposing that there's no change for school sport to be for their bookings during school term and school hours. Lighting categories, we're proposing that they're broken down more by infrastructure type rather than field type. So halogen 50 lux, 100 lux and a 200 lux. The field hire and lighting fees proposed would be applying to all bookings. How that looks in the model. So Grassfields, the chart up here, you will see that the current column, if we're just focusing on local for the moment, we're just applying the fee subsidy model. That's what the current rate is, and it only applies for junior fields, for seniors only, sorry. The cost model, which we come up from the costing model, equates to a $26.44 an hour annualised. And what we're proposing, if you apply the 75% subsidy on the cost model fee, which is the 75% on $26.44, you get $6.61, which is applied to all bookings. Now, if you apply the subsidy framework, there's no subsidy on the next category, and then there's 3 times cost on the next. So how does that look? So we move on to how does that look with our neighbours? You can see that when we benchmark across councils, we are still quite lower than our neighbouring councils that apply to all users across those councils. Using an example of our sports clubs, because we note that sport clubs have not historically paid for juniors. So the costing model currently, if we were to apply the costing model with no subsidy, based on that example of 500 members of Grassfield, etc., they would be paying $13,749. Currently, they're only paying for seniors only under that $23.50 current rate. So it's around $2,820 they pay for a 26-week season. And if we were to apply the subsidy model to all bookings, it would be around $3,437, which is a slight increase from what they're currently paying, and works out to be about 27 cents per week per member in that scenario. If we move on to synthetics, you'll note the synthetics start from a low base. They're probably half of what the current cost is for the grass model that I just used. So at the moment, they're paying $10.80. The cost model for synthetics, noting that they're a higher annualised maintenance, is $94.66. If we apply the same subsidy framework of the 75% subsidy on the cost model, you're looking at around $23.67 for a local user. Comparing to our neighbours, you can see that that is still quite below our neighbouring councils. And if we apply the model to an example of a sports club, similar to 500 members, synthetic field, etc., if we apply the cost model with no subsidy, it's 49,000 or so. If you were to apply what they're currently paying, which is only seniors only, it's $1,296. And the contribution for the season, if you apply the subsidy model, which applies to all users with a 75% discount off the cost model, it's $12,309. So it is a bit more of a substantial increase compared to the grass, but we are starting at a low base for the hourly rate. In terms of lighting, no council has an exact science unless you have sub-metering on every location, and City of Sydney and Randwick have got that, and we're looking at that as a future project to work towards real-time metering and real-time use and cost. The costing model that was presented from Georgie recently looked at it as a type of bulb and looked at some of the energy costs and narrowed it down to bulbs. And to administer counting bulbs per field would be a nightmare to administer through a bookable system. The current fees that are applied, and again only applied to the seniors for local hirers, is $10.80 for synthetic and $14.40 for grass, and they're just legacy costs. What we're proposing is trying to break it down into categories of the 50 lux, 100 lux and a 200 lux, which 200 lux is only used occasionally, and council resolved that recently, and that's mainly used for some sport games. So it mostly falls into the $7 or $10 an hour, which is a decrease of what they're currently applied. However, what's proposed is that those fees are a direct cost to council, and they would be applied to all users, not just senior use. So the next steps would be to present this framework and work and engage with our sport groups and clubs and associations coming up at the sports forum. This fee model would be placed on exhibition to tie in with the IPNR process, and that we would bring it back to the committee with the outcome of the engagement. Obviously the modelling, we would have broader modelling examples which align with some of our sport types of sports and our different size clubs as part of the engagement process, so they can really see what it looks like in terms of the impact on individual clubs. But we just tried to use some baseline examples today. Thank you.
Thank you very much for all reports, but particularly for all the work which has been done. So please send our congratulations to Georgie for the work she did, which I know is groundbreaking amongst councils. It's a very good piece of work. Yes, one of my questions when I looked at how much larger our subsidy is than really all the surrounding councils, which is nice for our residents. But my question is whether that has any impact. Is it only a benefit we're giving to our residents, or does it have an impact on sort of attracting more people to using our fields from surrounding areas? I mean, in other words, are we subsidising more than our residents because we're not sort of benchmarked to everybody else? And I don't know how that works, if you can explain that.
Yeah, through you, the Chair. The proposed model is focusing on the subsidy only applying to the local hirers that are based in Bayside, that have, like the home clubs, for example. The subsidy, it won't be applied to any non-local organisations or hirers that aren't based in and can demonstrate that they're based in. And remember, we have the sport allocation policy that has a hierarchy of use and priority of use. And we're the only council that doesn't it's charged by user, so we're the only council that doesn't charge for juniors. Most of them are based on field hire. I guess at the moment it's an incentive to come and try and use our facilities because we don't have that sort of flat rate and a subsidised rate to be able to make sure that it is fair and equitable for our community users. So we are finding that there's a lot of clubs that are now trying to come into Bayside because of the current model that we have.
So when you say that, come into Bayside, register as being Bayside clubs somehow, or is it that people just join a Bayside club because it's cheaper? I mean, I don't know how this flows through to membership fees.
There's probably two things. They're coming through to try and rename themselves, to try and find a home and base themselves here.
Yeah.
Other than that, they may be aligning with other clubs, but predominantly we have historic, strong clubs in the area, and this is what this fee model is focusing on, is really supporting, trying to find that balance of a contribution to obviously the whole of life and maintenance of our fields, but also provide ongoing support and subsidy of those fees for our local participants and groups.
So there's no way of telling the actual membership of the club. As in, yeah, I mean, obviously they have to register as members at some point to have, say, 80% of the membership has to be living in Bayside, or, like some such number to qualify as a Bayside club.
It's difficult to drill down into that level of detail for memberships. We do get membership data. We do work with the associations, and we do, part of the allocation policy, they do have to demonstrate, with their membership, their training, their history, that they are classified in our hierarchy as the local-based club.
Do other people have questions? Oh, sorry, Councillor Descu? Yes, Councillor Descu, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was really thorough. So my question is, have we calculated what percentage increase there is to clubs for seasonal hire with this new fee structure? Is anyone speaking? Because I can't hear anything.
No, she's just trying to find it, Councillor Descu.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, cool. Great. Thank you.
Going back to the slides that show you.
Maybe if I can just, Councillor Descu, just refine your question a little bit, if it's okay. Well, with the sports forum, are we going out to each club to say this is what you currently pay and this is what is proposed? So it's here, I know it's scenario based and high level, but will we be presenting to each club what is and what will be?
Yes, we will be modelling and advising the clubs. We've got spreadsheets on that, but we didn't want to list every club in a public forum, and we'll be basing that on historic use. So we'll be able to see how many hours, how many fields, what they've previously paid, what's the impact in terms of this new fee model onto that club. So yes, we will be liaising with the clubs around that individually.
And how does that work with the sports forum in that it's likely to be quite contentious across some clubs, and there's always been who gets what, etc. So is that going to be presented on a one-on-one basis? But I know there has to be balance with transparency as well. So how do we as a council deal with that?
Through you, the Chair, what we'll be doing is modelling some examples where a club can walk up and say, well, I fit into that, or I fit into that, I fit into that, roughly, based on the scenarios that we'll give. We'll be using scenarios based on some of the clubs that we know and the membership data we know. Then we'll follow up with those clubs to be able to give them, if they want more information, we'll give them the actual information. Most of the clubs know what hours they're using through their bookable system, and they'll be able to also go away and do some of their analysis, but we will also provide that information to them individually. But yes, for privacy and transparency, we don't want clubs up there all looking at each other. We'd rather be able to go, here's some scenarios so they can actually see, well, yeah, I kind of fit into that and I fit into that and I fit into that. And also sports too.
So if I can just follow up on that comment, at the forum, the intention is to have some sections where everyone is together and there's some discussion, but then to split up and go to a series of storyboards around the room. So people can then head off to have a look at the bit that relates more specifically to their club. There'll be an opportunity for comments and for, making some sort of contribution. There'll be questions asked and they'll be able to respond to those questions, and people will move around the room looking at different storyboards based on their interest. So it's the only way we'll really be able to get that one-on-one feedback with them and not have the very loud vocal clubs swamping some of the others or taking over the agenda. We think that's the fairest and most even-handed way, and there'll be someone staffing each of those points so that they can engage in some deep and more, conversations with some substance, specifically with the clubs that come up to their station.
So will it be clear to the committees of the clubs exactly what it is? Like, I understand the intent, but when we're looking at a big club, I won't name anyone, but just so we're looking at a 500 plus club, and at the moment, let's just say their total fees to us are, I don't know, $20,000. Will it be very clear to say, well, it was 20,000, now it's going to be 25? Is it going to be that black and white, or is there any, I just want to be transparent. Like, I understand where we're going. It's just the transparency for the clubs, and then they can go back to their committees and their members and say, and the example you gave there, basically the way, and again, it's scenario based and it's not any particular club. I looked at it and well, all they have to do is put up their membership fee by $26 a year, and then they're going to have a full cost recovery, which is not too bad. But I just want to make sure we're transparent with the clubs that this is what you paid us last year, and this is, if this is implemented, this is what it's going to be. The transparency is the key. So I just want to make sure what we're doing is going to facilitate and enable that.
Yes, absolutely. There will be that transparency. It's also the opportunity to talk about the number of hours that a club would want to have allocated to it. We've talked about the scarcity of the resource in the past, and when there is no cost involved, it's blanket booked. So not only will we be talking about the cost to that club, the increase in cost, and as I think the example shows, very minimal when it comes to natural turf, quite substantial when it comes to synthetic. And so really managing that demand and supply and the inequity that we have had in the past, that'll be part of the conversation we'll have with the clubs as well.
Thank you, Councillor McDougall.
Can I just say, I think it's also, including the presentation that being given an annex to the council report, I think, so that this is out in public is really important. But I'd also, demonstrating how we benchmark against our neighbouring councils, because I think it's been a common theme that we are very committed to supporting local sport, and I don't think this is changing that. But one of the and I don't think it will necessarily not be contentious, but I think one of the issue that I think this is really important to address, because I don't think it's actually, this isn't massively changing in our cost recovery or anything, and I don't think it should. Others might have different views about that. This is going to make not an enormous difference in council revenue, but I think it is actually really important that we recognise that, and I don't think anyone does this deliberately, honestly, but it's very easy when it costs $0 to book something to just whack in a booking. Every month I get complaints from some of the larger clubs in the area that we have. They can't get access to facilities for juniors while other fields are sitting empty because they're booked up. And that's something that I think we seriously have to address, because our population's only growing, and it's not easy finding more green space or playing fields. So we do need to be conscious about that. So I think this is a fairly proportionate approach. But as has been said, we need to be super transparent about what we're doing, why we're doing it, and what the change means for people.
Yep. The other question I have is you've put the costings up very well there for the existing fields. We do have on the cards some other new fields which have got a significantly higher cost base expected for them. Is that going to be clear to people as well during the forum?
Through you, the Chair, we do have the Tier 1, Tier 2, the premium fields listed here in terms of synthetic, as we mentioned in the previous presentation, which Georgie did. We haven't costed a full costing model for the synthetics for the future.
Yeah.
We've only been, the costing model was based on the synthetics that we have now, but we can apply a similar approach as those synthetics come online.
Yeah. Yes, Councillor Brittahoff.
Thank you. The 75% fee subsidy from the cost model, how did that come about?
I think we're trying to, well, look, we benchmarked, but then we also looked at the fact that we were trying to find a balance without significant financial impact on the clubs. So if, remember, this is the only council that charges $0 for juniors. So if we were going to apply a standardised approach, we were trying to balance it, because if not, then it would be a higher increase. So really we looked at the 25, 50% and we modelled it, and we thought what was reasonable was the 75%. We also factored in, I guess, the modelling that was done around what the utilisation and how heavy the utilisation is of the sports clubs, but then also how big those and what community contributions they provide to our community, and we're proposing a 75%.
Do you know whether other councils, I know you've shown the comparison, but how does this 75% fee subsidy compare to other councils? Do we have that too?
Chair, it's in the presentation, for example. So while this subsidy looks quite minimal, as in a $6.61, the other fees you need to note that's because we're also historically only applied the fee to seniors. We've got a higher proportion of junior membership in our area. So the uptake will be trying to level that out. So if you look at City of Sydney, Randwick, Inner West Georges River, they've all applied to seniors and juniors in different seasonals and different approaches, where we've historically only applied it to senior use. That's where we've been trying to even out the modelling. Talking to Georges River tonight, they're looking at reviewing their per season. Their current model is you can hire it per season, but you can hire it 3 days or 5 days, still the same price. So I think we've got a lot of science behind ours. We've done spreadsheets, as Georgie would share, to try and come up with what we think is the fairest approach. And then it's really just determining that subsidy level.
And do you have any plans to maybe increase the subsidy, to reduce the subsidy level? Because I think, the council fees are still low compared to other councils, as we can see there. So is there a future planning to, reducing that eventually?
Through you, the Chair, we're not suggesting that. I think that's up for a council decision. And as we said...
The council of the day
Yeah.
up and down.
Yeah.
But this is just the same.
It's the principle we're talking about, a sort of calculation mechanism here. And I guess, yes.
Just to note, we have over 180 people, population living in this area. The St. George Football Club is 15,000 people. So the ratio of subsidy for that number of people is really high.
Yes, sorry. Yeah. Councillor Douglas.
Yeah, I was also quite shocked at the level of the subsidy, especially given that synthetic field is half the cost of grass fields currently. That seems completely topsy-turvy to me. And it sort of also indicates why no wonder everybody wants a synthetic field, given that they're half the cost than all the others, as well as that they don't get impacted by rain. So we've been providing an unrealistic subsidy for those synthetic fields. So it's good that this is starting to ground in more reality, even though it is so heavily subsidised. I mean, my concern is still that $10 million deficit for depreciation that we're facing. And yes, we can hope for grants for that, but actually it's our responsibility to be fiscally conservative and actually, you know, who knows what's going to happen in the world in the next year. Like the economy could be completely upside down. So actually finding ways where we can reflect the real costs to our community, I think is important. And this is a good start. I am concerned about the idea that we are becoming a hub for sport around the whole of Sydney because we're offering cheaper rates, and that our residents, ratepayers' money is going to subsidise other sporting groups outside of our community. I don't think that's fair. I think we're spending a lot of money on subsidies. So I think that is an ambition we need to check. You know, are we actually benefiting from being a central sport identity in Bayside? I don't think we are. I don't think it's overflowing to other businesses. I think it's a cost to ratepayers currently. And I think that's a cost that comes at the expense of other things like safe streets programs or arts events or heritage. You know, these are very real costs that come at the expense of other things that we could be paying for as a council. And I also honestly think this is a very big audit and risk problem. I mean, this could be seen as soft corruption, quite frankly, that we are providing facilities for a group of people at half the cost of the grass fields really does not sit well with me at all. I think we desperately need to change this. Otherwise, it's a really big risk for us as a council.
I guess what I was interested, because I was asking questions earlier about how we tell if people at Bayside. I mean, I'm all in favour of supporting sport in Bayside. I think it's really important for so many reasons, but I just don't want to be paying for everybody else's sport. So the response you gave earlier was that it's quite hard to determine the membership of clubs. And I'm just wondering if there's any leverage which can be gained by going to clubs and saying, look at the benchmark here, guys. Like, we are clearly supporting sport in Bayside. We are, you know, we're charging you a quarter sometimes of what other LGAs are charging. And we want to continue to do that because we love sport, but we want to support sport for Bayside residents. So can you please, well, not just please, like conditional on getting this fee, can you actually provide us proof that the people we're subsidising are actually Bayside residents? Because I think if we know that these people are all Bayside residents, or, you know, 90% or, you know, whatever, Bayside residents, then it looks like, you know, like I'm happy to support sport for Bayside residents. But I just don't want to be making a huge subsidy if I don't know that. And I understand that it's difficult to get that information now, but I'd be interested in knowing how we do get that information, given that it's a reasonable quid pro quo for the subsidy we're giving.
Through you, the Chair, we can request from the associations if they can hand us postcode data. So when you register, you need to put your
Address.
details in. So we can work with the associations of all the sporting clubs to see whether they can provide that information in future.
Thank you. That would be lovely. Yes, Kat.
Sorry, can I just make a couple of comments on some of the debate, but then also just have questions about other sorts of fees. Funnily enough, given there are what do we say, 900 and something. So I just provide input on, I think, what Councillor Kassim was just saying. I think overwhelmingly people who are playing sport in our area will be driven by the fact that they live in our area. I mean, what are football rego fees at the moment? They're, probably $500 a kid or something. I don't want to know because it's probably going to be a problem for me soon. But yeah, like, this is not really moving the needle on registration. Like, you're going to spend, if there are, avaricious parents out there who are driving to Bayside to get their kids to train 3 evenings a week, like, good on them. Like, I think the current fuel crisis is probably causing them more of a problem than our fee subsidies. And on I don't think the sort of comments around the level of subsidy provided to this are really fair. I think that happens across so many areas of government policy. You address need. We spend $50 billion a year on the NDIS. It's a very large part of the federal budget, and that goes to 3% odd of the population. I don't think that's an unreasonable way to conduct government policy. We spend $250 billion on health across the country. That goes, that spending is heavily concentrated in a relatively small number of people. Kids' sport is a life cycle thing. But we know it is incredibly valuable to the community's health and well-being, lifelong mental health, social outcomes, and health outcomes for kids. So I'll continue to argue that this is money well spent. We are providing a public service to our community, and not everyone is going to use all of our services all the time. So most people use garbage collection services, but outside of that, we run childcare centres and we run libraries. How many Bayside residents have a library card to our local libraries? These are valuable things that I think we're obligated to provide. So with that being said, can I just raise the footway trading fees that have really substantial increases? So this is page 138 of the report. I doubt it's in the presentation. Can I just ask before, I assume there's been some sort of thought behind, a 70% increase at Rockdale and a 60% increase at Mascot Station and all of this beyond just sort of, throwing a dart. I'd be really interested to see what that sort of logic is around the fee increases prior to the meeting and these going on public exhibition. But I'd probably also be in favour of sort of if there's a good logical commercial reason for us to increase these fees to this level, hopefully based on demand and competition and all that sort of thing, then I really think we should have a bit of a longer lead time to phase these in, because there are some pretty dramatic increases at a time when retail trade is doing it pretty tough. And if there's a sound commercial reason to doing it, I think we should consider that. But phasing something in 20% a year for 3 years, I think, is far more preferable to get us on the right trajectory rather than doing 60% in one go.
Yeah.
But can we get some more information prior to the council meeting on that? Because unless someone has those answers now.
Oh, yeah, and I was going to say on that, is it possible perhaps to do a bit of a comparison? Because I think, if we are, like the excellent work which has been done for sporting fuels in terms of a comparison across LGAs, it might be interesting to see how much footways cost in, neighbouring councils, for example.
I think that's hard to benchmark because each area is kind of unique. The value of the real estate varies by location, even across our LGA. They're all set differently across the different sort of classes of town centres. But it's what's the logic, and what would the impact on the budget be if we took a phased approach to this?
Yeah. Mm.
Can we also dive into other areas of the budget?
Yep.
Is that we're going to do?
Yes.
So I just wanted to pull out a few things. Page 23, which is of the supplementary report. Are we going into that? Or are you doing a presentation on that, or are we just going to that now?
You mean the supplementary report that was circulated yesterday or the under separate cover report that was circulated? Sorry, the full operational plan?
Operational plan and budget for exhibition.
Okay. Which page, sorry, councillor?
23. Bring it up myself. So, I was concerned about 11134, advocate for the enforcement of laws to ensure responsible jet ski use on the bay to protect our community. The only measure and target is to write to our relevant ministers and government agencies, and yet we passed a notice of motion at the end of last year committing to public consultation on exclusion zones, and that's not reflected at all in this. I think that's an omission that needs to be corrected. I did actually raise this with the general manager last week as a note just to get an update on that.
To the chair, councillor, I will revisit the notice of motion and redraft or review this to make sure that it's adequately.
Before the council meeting.
Before it goes on public exhibition, so what I can do is, as part of the report back that goes to council to endorse this for public exhibition, I can include changes that have been made post this meeting.
Thank you. The other one, and this may be controversial, but we did talk about at some length around a complete streets program for Bay Street as well, as separate to but inclusive of the master plan. And I think that might be worth naming in this 113. Our community safety strategy is relevant and actively implemented, because I think the complete streets approach that we've agreed to as a council and the master plan is focused on that implementation of a safer high street. So if we could look at adding that in as well.
Again, through the chair, councillor Douglas, I'll have a look at the. I'll go back to the subject matter expert on this and get the detail on the community, the safety strategy that you were talking about.
Thank you. Then I'm going to move to page 25, which is the Rockdale Centre Master Plan is adopted and being actively implemented. There's nothing in there, unless I've missed it, around the arts precinct. So that has something that we also said via notice of motion, and every time this comes up, I mention that we don't
Through the
have
chair,
arts in
councillor
there.
Douglas, very aware of that. It is included in the master plan for the administration building sector, if I'm correct, which is not planned for next financial year. So it hasn't been left off. It's just it's not being delivered next financial year. As part of the engagement for the Rockdale Centre Master Plan, I believe that will be highlighted, but it's not something that we are delivering in 26-27, which is why it's not directly included in the plan.
But will we be preparing a concept design for the Newtown Park and Administration Building and Arts Precinct? Will they be all inclusive, or are we just doing a concept design for the Newtown Park? Because when we've done the walkthroughs and the councillor sessions on that, we were looking at the whole precinct design.
Through the chair, councillor Douglas, again, I can take that back to the.
No, it's not.
I beg your pardon, thank you.
Through the chair, the work that you're talking about, councillor Douglas, that is incorporated into the 27-28 year. So that will be highlighted then. We have work to do prior to that, that we will be doing in the year that we're talking about here. A lot of the planning, the technical planning work that has to be done, and then the detailed work around the function and the cultural and arts precinct that will follow that work.
Okay, great. Thank you. And page 31. So this is about diversity. Have I found the right page? Page 31, 2.1.4.1. Sorry, it's actually page 32. People with disability are included and considered in council's planning and decision making. Funded actions from the Disability Inclusion Action Plan. I just wondered what's happening with the focus on accessibility for our beaches. We did that big, amazing beach audit. We said as a council that we would focus on a couple of areas, 3 areas, I think it was, or as like accessibility areas. is there any actions coming out of that that will be in this operational plan?
We'll check exactly where it is, but that work is being done in accordance with the work we're doing at Banston Parade for the new swimming enclosure there. So that certainly has been identified as the preferred location. Whether we've captured that in the wording, but we can go back and make sure that that's in there because the work is progressing.
Yeah, I think it would be worth adding another point in there around that, and also about the toilets upgrades that we're working on across the beach front to make sure that those accessibility toilets are well signposted, that we're providing those facilities, or providing support for those facilities. I think that is all. Thank you.
Thank you. I was also going to raise a couple of other things which also relate to notices of motion. They could be buried in here, but just to see that they are in fact in. With regard to the murals which are to go up in all the town centres, I presume there is some sort of a schedule of that happening, and but I can't see it under the sort of arts.
Through the chair, it definitely is in here, activating laneways and murals. It's definitely in the plan. I don't remember exactly where. I think it's in theme 1. There was new actions that were included this for next year. Delivering the annual arts, delivering creative arts forum, develop a program to activate laneways across Bayside. So all of those things will.
So that's laneways. Okay, so you've subsumed murals under laneways, which wasn't really the intention. Like murals can go on a lot of places, not just laneways.
Yes.
Okay, so that's, for the moment, that's how it, I mean, I haven't heard any, like, it would be nice to actually get a report back on what the plans are for implementing those murals in town centres.
Through the chair, some work has been done on identifying potential locations.
Yeah.
And there is a report to come back to you. I think it's due next month.
Fantastic. And in terms of providing sort of more culturally and linguistically available material, it's also not specifically identified here, but I presume that is buried in here somewhere.
You, the chair, it is documented in the library strategy.
Okay.
So it's in action, year 3 action. So whilst it's not in the detail in the ops plan, it is in the library strategy, which we report up through the ops plan.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay. And I did notice, and you had some line, but I don't know what it was. There was an design excellence, and you're saying that was in the fees, but that is something completely different. It was called something Design Excellence Awards, but there was was in fee structure, something like per, as like there was no number in it. Basically, I can't remember what the term used was, but it was basically.
Is that design excellence? Is that the design excellence review panel fees? Is that what that was in relation
It's
to?
not what it was called, but maybe that's what it was referring to. Yeah. Okay. That's what. So in other words, there's nothing in here at all, because council's still coming back on options. That's fine. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Bretterhoff.
Thank you. Yeah, also on the operational plan, thank you for all that work. For Ward 3 on page 51, it says Gardena Park replace retaining wall. Is that in another retaining wall? Because some of the work has already been done.
Through the chair, thank you for my subject matter expert being in the room. There is a second retaining wall on the other side.
Oh, okay. Right. Good. And the Gardena Park lighting, that is also for the sport field light?
Yes, for the sports fields.
Okay. Thank you. And then another question. So we have in the 10 bolt moves, and that's probably also a timing issue, the Spring Street active transport corridor that is not I can't find in the projects. Is that also not for this next financial year?
It is there.
Is it?
I saw it.
Spring
There's an-
Street naturalisation, are you talking about?
No, from the 10 bolt moves, the bike connection active transport link, which is on page.
Uncliffe to Vigo to Barton Park and Riverine, yes.
Yes, which is on
It's
page
definitely
11.
in here. I can assure you
maybe-
there's an action for every 10 bulb move. That's one of the things.
Yeah.
I saw it too.
It is, it's on page, of the attachment, page 24. And it says,
So it's going to be in the
prepare
next-
approval documentation for construction of stage 1 and also award construction contract for stage 1 is the actions for 26, 27.
Oh, great. Okay, good. I couldn't just find it in the project one, which I haven't. Great. So it will be also next year. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other comments, yep, Councillor Morrissey.
I'm just going back about an hour and a half. How do we explain $15 million restricted depreciation? What does that mean? Like, how do you restrict depreciation expense? On like page 2 or 3 or something.
Yeah, it's the restriction relates to the income. So the income raised through the infrastructure levy goes directly to that depreciation. So we're just offsetting the income and the depreciation costs. Because part of our renewal, because every year, if you assume we renew all our depreciation every year, 15 million of that comes from a restricted fund. That's the infrastructure.
I understand that depreciation is an accounting, it's not real cash. So I'm just trying to connect because the $15 million and then for that to be restricted. So you might have to talk to me like I'm 5.
Okay.
I'm curious because depreciation is probably the number one thing that impacts in my view, the number one thing. And with so many big projects coming online in the next 5-10 years.
Yeah.
It's really important that all councillors and community understand it. So I'm just trying to get my head around what that means.
Yes. So the old SRV we raised in 2014, 2016 was for renewal of assets in the western side of the LGA. So that money goes directly against renewal, which is for us is in the P&L is depreciation.
Yes. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So we call it the infrastructure levy.
And that's used as that's used for the depreciation as it is accounted for.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Fantastic. If there's nothing else, yeah, all in favour? All against? Okay, carried. Thank you very much, and thank you to all the officers for those bearing with us as we went through all those questions. Okay, so we can now go to, sorry, here we go. The Bayside Customer Relations Management System. Do I have a mover for this? Yep, Councillor Morrissey, second, I think it was Councillor Dougal, and officer report, thank you.
Through you, the Chair. I haven't been here for a while. My name is Maria Pavlidis. I'm the Manager of Customer Experience. For those councillors who I do know, I went on maternity leave a while ago and I'm back, happily back, after having a daughter, which is very nice news. So I'm also joined by my colleague, Daniel Ankrig, which is our CIO, Chief Information Officer. Today's, I haven't got a presentation. I thought we'd just have a discussion because all the information is already in the report. This report is in response to a notice of motion that was raised late last year in regards to our customer relationship management system, or commonly known as our CRM. And the notice of motion asked to look at our current CRM system. What can it and can't it do? If we want to be more contemporary, what do we need to do to get there? And compare us to other councils. And that's what this report has provided. So I'm happy to talk through it if you are happy to listen, and then we'll take questions. So our current customer relationship management, or our CRM system, is using an enterprise resource management system called Infor Pathway, or we call it Pathway. Pathway was created many years ago for local councils, and there are a number of councils across Australia and New Zealand that do use Pathway. Pathway isn't just our CRM system, it's our property and rating system, it's our, we use it for a lot of things. We use it for compliance, we use it for information tracking. And the CRM section of that is one module within Pathway. It's functional, but it is limited, to be very honest. And it's limited in terms of the way we want to meet more of our customers' more contemporary needs. So one of the key issues that we find with our customers is, well, how come that company can do it and you guys can't? Oh, Service New South Wales allows me to do X and Bayside doesn't, or whatever it might be. So our customers are expecting more and more from us, especially in terms of our technology and our responses through technology, and we do have limitations in our current system, but the current system also does do quite a lot of good work. Being a council and the number of services that we do provide, we also aren't in a position, and most councils are not in this position, where we can look at our customers with a single view, because we do actually use not just this system for our customer request management system, but we also have other systems like our libraries, our aquatic centres, our waste systems. So our customers interact with us across a number of systems. Our CRM system is essentially about when the customer is requesting a service. So just keep that in mind, and that's what we're assessing today. The customer experience strategy was adopted by Council 3 years ago, and we have completed stage 1 that was reported to Council late last year with a closeout report by my colleague Sally Fernandez. Throughout the process of stage 1, we did activate quite a number of improvements that were minimal in their cost, but still allowed us to work better with our customer and with our existing system. Some of the projects that we did, and we've listed in the report, is the activation of a standalone AI project through Copilot. That's allowed us to categorise our incoming emails. We get a large influx of incoming emails from our customers. It allows us to categorise it easier and allocate it to the actioning teams. We have looked at reviewing particular CRM processes and training our staff on how to be more responsive. And we've also introduced over the past stage new SMS technology that allows our customers to get an SMS response to their call. We've done quite a lot of work on pre-qualifying SnapSend solve requests. I can go into detail about that if you'd like me to. And we've also developed up our digital self-service portal, which we call Report It online, and we're seeing a really great take-up of Report It since its launch mid last year. Whilst we were implementing these improvements throughout stage 1, we also did look at how can we use our existing system Pathway to allow for customers to get an automated response to their services. And we did find that the concept that we developed with Infor, just to be honest, just didn't cut it. I'll be quite honest. We tested it through, we tried creating it to the best we could, and we just didn't feel that launching it to the community was giving the community the best outcome we could, and we didn't want to give them a half-baked solution coming out of the system. So this report also, so that's what we've done in terms of how can we improve the current system to date. But customer experience isn't just a systems or a technology process, by all means. It's definitely a process of, developing a great experience for our customers isn't just about the technology that we use. It's about how do we use our practices, our processes, and looking at customer behaviour and how can we help our customers with their behaviour. So the report looks at a couple of things for information. And just to give you some context as to where we could go in the future. Over the last calendar year, we still got, in terms of CRMs, our CRMs primarily, 64% of them still came through our call centre. That's a really high number compared to other industries. And call centres, for a customer to get on the phone and call us, is actually quite a labour-intensive activity on their end. But we have seen a change in community behaviour as well over the past few years. For the past 3 or 4 years, each year, we've seen an ongoing increase in our customers using email. Like I said before, we get an influx of emails every single day. And we've done, when we developed up the customer experience strategy, we actually went out to the community and did a lot of research, and we asked them, how do you want to contact us? And primarily they said, we want to be digital first, and we're seeing that. We saw that in the email influx that we're getting over the past couple of years. But since we've launched Report It, month on month, we've seen an increase in our customers using our Report It system too, which is really great news because the way we've developed our Report It system that sits on top of Pathway allocates the customer request directly to the allocating team. There's no manual intervention created. So that's something you can pass on to your constituents, that if they do want to get their system to the team quicker, our reported system's the way to go. We still run counter service, and we always will. We've got a counter service at East Gardens and a counter service at Rockdale, but only about 1% of our CRMs come over the counter. Call centre requests via email and requests over the counter require manual intervention by staff. Our report it doesn't. So, and that's within the existing system that we have and the existing limitations of the system. Another thing we can look at in terms of creating a little bit more context as to what's really happening within our CRM system is looking at the request types. So the report lists that in the past calendar year, being 2025, we got about 40,000 CRMs through the CRM system, and over half of them are actually only about 7 categories. So there's a real opportunity for us to, outside of changing the technology, there's a real opportunity for us to deep dive into those 7 top categories and look at the process and look at how we can better use the existing technology to give our customer a better outcome. And those request types are in the report. Slow me down because I'm very fast. So there's a question in between, slow me down. So whilst, yes, we do have limitations to our current CRM system, focusing on process improvements would still allow our customers to get a better experience. And that's the intention of stage 2 in the customer experience strategy that was adopted by Council late last year. The next part of this report is the comparison of what does a contemporary CRM look like from a customer perspective and operational perspective. Does our current system allow it? Would it allow it with an upgrade, or would we need to get there with a replacement? I have listed out the different types of things that an average customer and average organisation would expect from a contemporary CRM system, and then allowed you to see whether our current system can or can't do it with a current capability, an upgrade or a replacement. And again, I'm happy to talk to that if you'd like me to. The NOM also asked for a benchmarking exercise to be completed against other councils. We went through our friends in SS Rock, and we also went through other metro councils, and we found that there's a really wide variation of how councils deal with their customer requests. Some councils, like ours, have an enterprise-based system with a module inside of it, like a CRM system within Pathway. That's what that means. We found that 17% of the metro councils operate in a similar way that we do. They've got an enterprise system with a CRM module. We found that 30% of our metro councils actually have an integrated system, but not the same. Sorry, let me say that again. The 17% is us, uses Pathway with a Pathway CRM. The other 30% of our metro councils have another type of integrated system, some of them like Tech One, for example, where again, it's an ERP system with a CRM within it. And then we found that 54% of the metro councils across our area actually have a property system or an ERP system, and then they've tacked on a different CRM, which is a possibility. Because CRMs or customer requests do come in manually or do come in via our digital engagement, and they're not brought in by the rest of the system. It's not like it's a finance request, for example, that the finance module needs to bring the request in. The request comes in from the customer. You can actually tack something on to your existing system. We found that 54% of the metro councils have done that, and there's a variety of different systems that they're using, some that we didn't even know what they were when we did the research, and some of the phone calls and engagements that we've done with our neighbouring councils and across Metro Sydney have shown us that, yes, they've tacked on a different module, but they may not be getting the integration that they thought they would as well. So there isn't a perfect solution, I'll be very honest with you, and we have done the most that we can do within our system as well. So moving forward, the recommendations are that we continue within the stage 2 of the customer experience strategy to look at how can we do better within our existing processes and within our existing system. But in parallel, our IT strategy also lists assessing a new CRM system as one of its key projects. So we'll be looking at what are the capabilities of the current system, what's the capabilities on the market, and having a look at what we can create, but continuing to just improve on our current practices as well, because like I always say, there's no excuse to not be better tomorrow. We can still be better without a new system, but there is definitely limitations to the current system. Was that too fast?
No, that was great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's important and it's complicated, and I can hear that you're struggling, doing your best with what you've got. as everyone is, because the demands just keep going up and up. For me, one question I have is, aside from the demands which universally go up and up for better tech for everybody, I guess I'm interested in the fact that, like you said, industry-wide, we've actually got a very high rate of people who are wanting to do things personally, as in over the phone,
Yes.
And I'm wondering what your, what research or whatever, how, through discussions with focus groups or however you've done it, to try to get an idea of why that is. And in terms of the benchmarking across councils, I guess I'm interested in benchmarking really by, or almost by sector. So like I'm imagining, for example, that some of it might relate, there might be an age-related factor in there. Be interesting to hear, what age people are ringing because they prefer to ring rather than do an email. And also by sort of CALD areas, and whether or not if we're benchmarking across, say, Canterbury, Bankstown, Fairfield, other LGAs, where Liverpool, whatever, where they may also have populations who are really not comfortable with typing out an email in English. And so I guess whether or not any of these whiz-bang systems which you're looking at have got good language capability, for example, and whether or not we can learn anything from what other councils have done in terms of almost educating our population, like helping people, even running workshops for them or whatever, to help them to utilise the tech, if that is in fact more convenient, like it is. It is more convenient to do things on your phone or whatever, while you're on the run, but it's got to be suitable for you. So I guess that's the question I have on that front.
Through you, Chair. I'll take so for the first part of the question about the phone calls, our percentage of incoming inquiries via phone call is pretty average for what's happening, and we do understand that it is our older community that do use the phone, and it's our younger community that do use the digital. The digital experience that we're finding from our customers is that they want a response and they want it quick because because they can engage with us quickly as well. So we do get a lot of repeat engagements from our younger community digitally, not so much with our older community. Our older community also come to the counter. In terms of language, I have seen some councils with some newer, not CRM systems, but I have seen them use it for their community engagement systems, where there are translation options across the website, for example, that allows it to be translated into local communities. I think that would be a really good thing for us to look at when we are doing our assessment. I don't think it's asking too much to have new technologies to be able to translate things.
Yep.
In terms of educating the community, we can definitely look at that and take that on notice.
Yeah, thank you very much. Other questions? Yes, Councillor Poulos.
Just a really quick question. You mentioned that when you narrow things down, it sort of got down to about 7 or 8 different categories. How are you working with those categories, and are you making sort of, and these are not overnight sort of practices, are you sort of then delving into, well, what can we do to eliminate those sort of residents reaching out to us for, council collection? Like, have you grouped them off? Do you have like a fact or common questions asked page and things like that?
Through the chair. So the process that we conduct when we do that is called customer journey mapping. And what we do is we act out as though we are a customer, and we look at every single step that operationally is happening in the back end to handle 1 or 2 customer inquiries. During that, we assess when could we have given the customer better information up front? When could we have addressed the inquiry? How do we ensure that the customer is updated along the process? And how do we ensure that we're managing that expectation for the customer? So it's really, they do take a very long time, these processes, they're not quick. They also involve quite a bit of change management from an operational perspective. a couple of years ago, just to go back in time, we did one for council trees. So we were getting, and we still do, a lot of inquiries about, well, can I get the council tree trimmed, cut, whatever it might be. By going through that process, what we found was that if we address the inquiry at the very beginning about the rules, about when we do and don't cut council trees, we could actually address the inquiry and not end the inquiry. I know that sounds harsh, but really just give the customer the truth of what was going on, as opposed to creating a request, getting the staff to have to deal with it when we actually knew what the response was right up front. So, yeah, the couple of things we look at is how can we address the inquiry in the first instance? How can the customer self-serve? And self-serving is how do they find that information out? And they might find out that I didn't have to make the call, the answer's already online. And then what process changes can we make to allow the customer to understand what's happened to their request and how they're going to see the end of it as well?
Just adding to that, obviously, learning from those repeat requests.
Yes.
So are you then sort of bundling them up and saying, okay, well, you've mentioned trees. Do you then sort of make the recommendations and go to the appropriate departments that, you need to sort of maybe update or,
Yeah, through the chair.
Through these repeat requests, obviously you're going to lessen the workload. If these sort of questions are coming every second day, go to whatever resources or wherever you're going to actually make those changes to avoid having to have that interaction and then having that first point of contact. Okay, it's a tree request. Do you know that we've got extensive information on our, web page and it can actually guide you through obviously those sort of requests. And not every request is the same, granted, but at least you sort of filter out some of those repeat questions.
Yeah, through the chair, that's correct. It's a partnership with the service provider, the internal service provider. So we sit down with them and understand their business just as much as we understand the customer's expectations, and we step through that, and then we make the necessary changes, whether it be published information, call-out cards, better scripting on the phone, or changes to the actual CRM system. We can make those internally.
Last question, I promise. So do you do like a regular review of, what are the requests that are coming through? Do you have like a weekly, monthly, quarterly sort of review on those sort of stats? Like, is it all collected and you actually then sort of can target those areas individually?
Through the chair, yes. So one good thing that our CRM systems really allowed us to do is we've created some really great internal dashboards using Power BI and the existing data behind it. And every manager can access that at any time. And that's where these sort of analysis like are managed this year in stage 2 of the customer experience strategy. And that's where we came up with the list and figured out that that's what we need to work on primarily, especially as this list is half of the CRMs. That's a really big experience for our customers that we can improve.
Thank you. Other comments or questions for everyone? Yes, Councillor Morrissey.
Thank you. In your response to the second recommendation there, you said, if I'm correct, that that'll include looking into alternative systems. Is that correct? Yeah. So can we just add at the end of that sentence, please, that word, that this is to include investigation of alternative systems, just for the record? Yeah, to include this is to include investigation of alternative systems. Because if that's the intent, let's just make it there. The second one is in relation to the next point. So how do you measure that? So you've got continues to review it, improve processes and staff behaviours. So I know there's no such thing as perfect. I don't believe in that whatsoever, but I believe in incremental improvement consistently. So how do we incrementally improve processes and staff behaviours? It's nice to say it, but unless we put some measures there or some dates there, it's just words. So how can that be improved?
Through the chair, this coming calendar year, the way we're going to be looking at is primarily looking at are SLAs being met? Are the SLAs appropriate? So we're looking at real measurable targets within the existing SLA that allows us to know whether the staff are and their processes are working. We will be reporting to our executive outstanding SLAs, outstanding responses to the CRMs. We are looking at a category, topics changing and why are they changing. So we look for trends within our existing data and then go back to the relevant teams to see what's going on in terms of behaviour.
Okay. So what if I could suggest as well, so you just through your, well, I can't say presentation, through your talk, you rattled off 3 or 4 or 5 different things. Oh, in the last week we've done this and we've done this and we've done this.
Yes.
So I think it'd be advantageous if there's just not so much the internal stuff, but just the strategic level that the community, if we say, so what, if the community says to us, so what, okay, that you're doing work and making yourselves busy, this is the actual improvement and here's the impact of that improvement. Because you've rattled it off and you know it, but it's just not there. So there's some points in the report, but if I just said so what and we answer that question for our community, it's going to be a much more transparent and easily digestible report. So if I could add that to a report to at the end of number 3 with reports to council every 6 months. And it could just be a simple presentation like this. I wouldn't expect War and Peace to say, here's a baseline, here's what's changed, and here's the impact. It doesn't have to be all the internal KPIs and SLAs and all that sort of stuff, because that's really operational and not to be too much of our concern, but just those strategic things that we've changed this from this to that, and the impact to our community is this. And if you report that every 6 months, I think that'd be advantageous. Is that something that's doable?
It's doable, yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. And the other thing is you did mention Copilot. I've got a Copilot license at work and I now can't live without it. Have you done any, or is there any intent to support our staff with Copilot licenses, given that you can ask Copilot if it's linking to our internal systems, to your point about getting to what the likely or actual outcome is at the point of contact, rather than sending people around the block. You can go into Copilot. This person wants to complain about a barking dog in a block of flats, and it will lead the staff. Have we done any work around that?
Through the chair, we've done a bit of work in the background already. So we have a couple of things. We have a customer knowledge base that's like our songbook that internally we have available to all our staff so they know how to respond on every topic. And above that, we've created a little bot, thank you. So our internal staff can write to the bot and go, my customer's asking me about X, and then it replies and gives it the scripted that we can say. Then within the innovation team, there is an AI policy and an AI use policy that is been drafted, that will look at what's the appropriate use of AI across all our staff operations, because we really need to look at it from a governance perspective as well.
Yeah.
And just to add that, the bot only reads from our knowledge base on our SharePoint and our website, so it only gives Bayside relevant information. So it should be 100, and we've tested it for accuracy, so it's pretty accurate. We tested it for about 4 months just to make sure it actually worked and did what it was meant to do.
We've got a bot that we spent a few $1 million on, and now Copilot's made it redundant.
Yeah.
In the space of 3 months. So my point is AI is here and AI should be for everybody. And I don't know if it's appropriate here or if you'd prefer me put it through a separate notice of motion to really invest, find a budget and invest in Copilot or Copilot type licenses, because that is the way. And if we don't keep up with that, then we're going to be relying on bot. What the bot relies on is someone updating the SharePoint site, and if that person's on leave or sick or whatever, it relies on another internal SharePoint, whereas Copilot or other AI tools are much more holistic. And the impact of that is going to make it easier for the staff to do their jobs and deliver great experiences every time, rather than rely on things that are not that are fast, let's be honest, becoming outdated. So should we put something in around the use of AI in a budget here, or do you want me to do that separately? Given that it is linked to, it's only to investigate the use. I wouldn't be expecting any budget, of course. GM, there we go.
We can certainly include it here. I guess with that caution that we do have a Copilot pilot at the moment. The cost of the licenses, I think we have an indication of what that would cost, which is...
They're about $600 per user per year.
Yep. So in terms of finding a budget to implement that across the entire organisation, that'd be something that we'd have to really look at. How we would find that money and what would have to be prioritised.
Of course, and
to do
I
that.
think it's a cost benefit, right? So if you're going to get huge benefits out of it,
Yeah.
great. But this is all I'm asking for is an investigation and consideration. Let's get this on the record that we're going to start thinking this way. I wouldn't expect, oh yeah, everyone's going to get a co-pilot license in November. No, it's more around how do we use those licenses. So council investigates the implementation of co-pilot or.
Or rather than.
The results of the pilot that we've currently done.
Well, put that. I just want to get it on the agenda. So
Yeah.
to report on the co-pilot pilot, and when would that? What can we put a time on that?
Through the chair, so we have a number of AI activities, so maybe we can just encompass them all in a
Yes.
future report that will enlighten you on what we are doing. But we've got some exciting stuff in the works.
Yeah.
They're not all co-pilot.
3 months. So just within 3 months. Is that right?
By the end of this
Yeah.
by the end of the financial year.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, reports.
No. So we just changed it to the council provides a report on co-pilot.
And other AI. Yeah.
And there's a co-pilot pilot. We want to report on the co-pilot pilot. The council provide a report, not investigating anything now. On the current
trial of co-pilot
Trial.
and other AI tools.
Yes.
There we go.
Yes, that sounds good. All right. Are there any other comments or questions from any councillors here?
Within 3 months.
That sounds good. All right. If everyone's okay with that, all in favour? All against? Great. Carried. All right. So now we have a series of tender reports.
Can I just suggest if anyone doesn't have, unless there are like questions on those, they're fairly self-explanatory. Maybe
Yes.
different presentations.
Do people
Do you want to talk, Louise?
do people want to see the presentations? Yeah. 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 Okay. So can I take them all in one line and say all in favour, all against? Oh, I need to move first. Sorry, I need to move. So the mayor and seconded Councillor Bretterhoff, and so for all four, that's 12, 13, 14, 15. All in favour. Yep, all against, declare it carried, and declare the meeting to be closed at 9:18. Thank you.